describe to you how you can configure MobileIron core with Hypergate. But before we get into that, just a couple of slides so that we get everyone on the same page. The issue that Hypergate is solving is basically Kerberos authentication for Android, and it's solving it in a very standard way using the Android standard APIs, accounts APIs that are there. By doing this, it does not require any changes to the infrastructure, nor it does require any changes to applications like the native Chrome browser or any other application which uses Chrome components in the app itself. But we'll get to that in a bit. So the key features is actually that you're installing Hypergate in your Android enterprise container, and then all applications can go and fetch tokens, Kerberos tokens, through the Hypergate application. Applications that are not in the container or are not whitelisted by Hypergate won't be able to access those tokens. By doing this, we have a single sign-on solution, which is very seamless. The user does not even see that this is happening in the background, can just consume its services. And as I already mentioned, this is something which is based on an Android standard, which also means that application usually, it's very easy to onboard applications to this system. Here's a bit more technical part. I won't go too much into the details here. However, the reason why I'm showing this is that you understand all the different components that are there, because we will be touching some of them now during the configuration. You have the managed mobile application, which can be the Chrome mobile application. And then you have your HTTP service, which is Spinego authenticated. This is your Kerberized service. This can be, for instance, your SharePoint. Now, Hypergate is also there because the managed mobile application will immediately hand over the challenge it receives from the Spinego service, from the service that is using Spinego to authenticate. And then Hypergate will go and fetch the ticket granting ticket based on the mobile device manager configuration code or push there. In our case, this is MobileIron core. But I think this is enough high level and talking. We'll get right into actually doing. So let me close the presentation for now. I might be using it later. And you might be familiar over here. I just went into our test environment, MobileIron test environment, and logged in. And the prerequisite that we have is that you have a tunnel infrastructure which is up and running. So we will not be covering this in our webinar today, but this is one of the prerequisites that you have. We already enrolled one device. The enrolled device is over here. And as we can see, we have both applications, the managed and non-managed ones, on the same device. There is no Hypergate installed because we have not configured it yet. We will be configuring it together. Now, to do that, we'll have to import the application, and it's a Android application. Because it's only enabled for certain enterprises, we will have to skip the step where we search it from the Play Store and go directly with the package name. In our case, This is the partner's package name of Hypergate. It really depends on what kind of setup you have. We will give you then the package name that you can enter here. So let me just add some details here and also add a little nice icon I prepared. Cool. Tick here the box with install this app for Android for Enterprise. And you will see that it already imported all the managed configurations that are on Hypergate. So we can finish. And apply it to labels so that I can go and fetch it on my Android Enterprise phone. Now, I was mentioning that the package idea is something that we will be sharing with you. In order for us to enable your installation to allow Hypergate, we will require from you the Enterprise ID. And the Enterprise ID is here under Services, Google. This one is the Enterprise ID. All right, now let's see what happened on our phone over here. Let me quickly check in. And usually you can push this, but we will accelerate the process and just fetch it directly from the store. Oh, it's already installing. All right. For this, let me quickly stop the tunnel. Cool. So as you can see here, now Hypergate is also installed in the Android container, but no account has been generated yet. You can check whether there are accounts over here. So we see in the work container there is no Hypergate account yet. This changes as soon as we open up Hypergate. Now we have over here an account. This means Hypergate managed to make itself discoverable on the system. Cool. Now there is absolutely no configuration here, and the drawer menu is very empty. You can decide how much the user can see by configuring it over here. So we're going from one extreme to the other. I'm enabling now every option we have. Cool. With MobileIron, you can always wait if you want to for the managed configurations to get pushed, but you can also simply check in, and then you will see that the new configuration are fetched. Now you see much more settings over here. We have a logging, which is currently empty, a troubleshooting ping utility, the actual config, we'll get to that in a second, and then also settings where we can override whatever we are pushing via NDM. This is just for troubleshooting and while you're setting up Hypergate. Cool. We see here there is absolutely no username whatsoever set, and the user would have to enter the username every time he wants to log in, which is something we don't want to do. But luckily, there are variables that we can set with MobileIron, and we're going to do that with this user ID variable. Now, as for the default realm, this is your realm that you defined on your Active Directory. KDC usually is your Active Directory controller, but it's not bound to that. It can also be just pure LDAP if you're living in the Linux world. All right, key distribution center, this is the host that we have, and we'll leave the rest open at the moment. So let me quickly check in. All right. Let me close the app first. Okay, now it fetched the new manage configuration. As we can see here, demo01 is my user, and it also fetched where it should be pinging, where the key distribution center is. If we test now before activating the tunnel, we will see that it will have a hard time to connect to the KDC because it connects directly. If we first go over to the tunnel and actually connect it first, now it will be resolving and connecting to the KDC. Now we know the connection is up and running. All right, cool. Now we can log in. For that, I'll type in the password over here. All right, so we received our ticket granting ticket. This was with username and password authentication. If we do it with username and password authentication, the user just needs to enter username and password a single time every 9 hours. Okay, so it's still single sign-on, but the user needs to input the username and the password for one single time for each and every 9 hours. The 9 hours, this is the validity of your ticket granting ticket. This is something you set in your Active Directory in case you are living in the Windows world. That was quite easy. Now let's get to a more interesting part, because Hypergate also supports certificate-based authentication, and that's quite sexy because the user does not need to enter anything. For the certificate-based authentication, you will have to make sure that your MobileIron core can push certificate onto the device, because those certificates will be later on then used to sign the pre-authentication request. And also you will have to set the KDC that you want to use for this and the certificate authority. In the certificate authority, this is the certificate authority on your that is handing out the certificates for your client. And since we cannot paste any file in here, we have to come up with a certificate converter. Now, let me quickly refresh this. It's quite easy. You enter your certificate in pen format over here. You can have an entire certificate chain if you want to. And then you hit convert, and this will convert your certificate into a string. You can also upload your certificate if you want to. For the rest, we'll leave everything open, and I'll explain them afterwards. Cool. Also, something I just forgot. Over here, we're enabling certificate-based authentication. So, let me check in again. Close Hypergate, open up again. And let's see whether this works now. Will tell me which certificate it's using. Okay, it cannot contact the KDC. The reason is because the tunnel stopped. Tunnel is really a requirement there. All right, so the user did not need to enter anything. Also, the prompt that you see there, if you are able to set the correct alias, the user won't be prompted with that. Let me see here, 10,000. Cool. So this was now the certificate-based authentication. And if we're now going through the rest that is there. The package name whitelist is an option that allows you to decide which applications can request tokens from Hypergate. If you leave it empty, all applications within the container can access and fetch tokens. If you type something in, then only those applications on that whitelist can fetch those tokens. For the discoverability list, very similar. This means that the user won't be prompted if you set that. And mail intent, if you have a look over here, we have logging with very verbose logs. You can empty it by hitting on the top there, but if you want to, you can also mail it. And we can go with Gmail. And then we'll see that afterwards. Yeah, let me first check in again. And close this one. Now you see on the top right, you can mail the logs. This is more for troubleshooting purposes if you want to be able to read through the logs on a larger screen. All right, the debug MDM parameter is not really required in this case. Crash reporting, if you enable this, Hypergate will contact our crash log servers in case something goes wrong. And the unreachable intent, if it does not have any connectivity, you can say that it should open up the tunnel, for instance, for your user. So let me check in again and see what it is. I'm now stopping the tunnel, and now Hypergate should be opening up the tunnel. Let me see. It did not fetch. Oh, for some reason, it did not fetch the managed configurations yet. Okay, now we have it. Let's see over here. All right, so this is the prompt you get if you set that option, and then it will open automatically tunnel. All right, cool. The last one, the carb5 conf, is if you have an environment with multiple realms or any special configuration, you can add it customly and then configure Hypergate in a way that the user will not have to enter anything, and it still can support multiple realms. So everything you see on top here is more used if you have a very simple environment with just one realm, and the carb5 file is if you really need something custom. Cool. I see that we're running out of time. If you want to enable a application like Chrome, make sure that you tell Chrome it is allowed to find accounts on the device, and also tell Chrome that, where is it? Over here. Tell Chrome that it will now understand the SPNego negotiate. Here you can say for which servers you will allow it. Let's take this one, for example. You can also go with wildcards here for testing. And then the account type. It's important, even though this looks like a package ID, it has very little to do with the package ID. The authentication type is always ch.papers.hypergate. You can enable also NTLM2 if you want to, and then that's it. And if your service is Kerberized, now Chrome should actually be logging in. And now I realize why the tunnel was falling off. For some reason, it's combined when I'm checking in. Cool. And make sure you're using the Chrome browser, which is managed. Ah, right. Tunnel is not running. All right, now we're getting an error because the web server is not configured properly, but this would be now SharePoint, and the user would receive directly the login without any input there. Cool. And the whole thing is also compatible with the Microsoft Edge. It's basically the same configuration down here. So you really just need to say which account type it should use. All right, I see that